Here we are again, Dave Rogers. Here we are again. Welcome to Fixed Stops Focus, everybody. Dave Rogers, what's on your mind tonight?
Well, how you doing, Steve? Everything's good, I hope.
Everything is spectacular. Everything is spectacular here. It's sure gotten hot, and I can't believe how busy and how much my phone is ringing off the wall. Not only with dealers, but we're getting comments in our comment section. How about that?
I like it.
So I got to read a comment, which I got to read a comment since we're on the topic, right? A guy named Mike Both sent a comment and it was like, your craziest car story, right? I'm not going to read it word for word, but this is actually pretty funny. It kind of ties into your rant. It ties into training. It sort of ties into everything. But Mike says, I had a customer once that never changed his oil in 42,000 miles until he never changed his oil 42,000 miles. He came in for some after warranty repairs, right? And he told the customer, well, we recommended oil change to you throughout the life of your vehicle and you never bought it. And the guy goes, well, I never hung up on you. So since I didn't hang up on you, you guys just must be weak and it's your responsibility. So you need to fix the car.
Well, he's got a point, right? He's got a point. Maybe he should be a trainer, that guy. So
I'm
Mike,
telling
Mike,
you.
Mike is actually was a service manager for years. He probably has a lot more crazy stories than that. He worked in South Jersey with me for a short period of time, and I believe good old Mike is actually retired. He's one of the few guys in this business so he's probably got a ton of stories, but he actually survived long enough to retire. And now when I see him on Facebook, he's traveling the world with his wife. So
Oh, that's awesome.
congratulations. Shout out to Mike. He's one of the few that made it out alive, right? You got to give him credit for that. But yeah, I'm sure with all his years, we probably could have him on and let him talk about stories after stories.
There are some great stories out there. But what's funny is you rant about this all the time, right? And so, and I hate to go down this path again, but we might as well. But if I tell you to do an oil change and you say no, there are consequences, right? And I could put myself in the customer's shoes and say, well, you didn't tell me I had to, because we in our training company, we don't allow people to say recommend. And so all this person did was recommend an oil change. The customer goes, no, 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 no. Nobody ever told him that the camshaft could snap. Nobody ever told him the consequences. I call that the C word. And man, when I talk about consequences with advisors and training, and I say to an advisor, well, you've got to educate the customer on the C word, on the consequences. Oh my God, you would have thought that I can't even begin to tell you what people think. It's like the worst thing ever is to say, are you aware of the consequences for not changing your oil? Like that's taboo, or it's mind blowing that we can't say that there are consequences for your actions.
Well, we can. I mean, we obviously can say it. It's just that people choose not to, right?
Right.
Conversation again with a general manager and a service manager recently, talking about, you know, what's different from this year to last year. And, when it comes down to it, and this wasn't my saying, that the GM, who isn't a fixed ops guy, doesn't know anything about fixed ops, will tell you that readily, that, he can't find a service department unless I leave a trail of popcorn for him to find it. That's kind of what, he admits. But, when you're talking and you're showing him some of the stats, the recommendations, the scheduled maintenance that's being declined, 100 alignments are offered or recommended by the technicians, and 87 of them are declined. He stated out loud that the advisors now are just sitting there waiting for the big warranty job, right? And they're trying to take the easy money. They
Yeah.
don't have those difficult conversations with customers, which is, part of the problem right now, right? You have, you know, I think I heard somewhere, you have loyalty, which I think is to the brand. Then you have retention to the service departments, right? Or the dealership. I think that's kind of the way, you'd have to look at it, right? I don't think customers are loyal to a dealer. You can retain them. They might love you, but, I think people fall in love and they're loyal to the brand. And when you have a brand like Toyota, Mercedes, JLR, these people are fanatics about this stuff, right? There's no way that if you tell them that changing the oil is required in order for your vehicle to operate properly, and the consequences are you're going to be stuck on the side of the road, you're not lying. That's not a scare tactic. I mean, I had a service writer that I worked with and I worked for when I first started the business. He was on a different team, but no, he was my service writer. He would tell customers if they declined brakes, he would ask them, "Where do you live?" And they go, "What do you know, he knew it. He got the like, "Where do you live?" He goes, "All right, I just gotta make sure I keep my family and my wife out of your neighborhood because when you go crashing through that next stop sign, I don't wanna be anywhere near you." Like, that's the way he used to sell work, right? Yeah, and I don't think you have to be that way, right? But, you're right. The consequences are of not changing the oil, which is the most simplest. I think Todd said it best today. He said, "If your doctor told you that you could come back every 5 years for a blood test, right?
Yeah.
And then but 1 year is probably the number, right? But if you followed that guy's advice, you're just I mean, that's stupid, right? You wouldn't do it. You'd probably go out and pay for yourself. But your insurance pays for 1 a year, why wouldn't you take them up on it, right? If I'm the doctor or the technician or the advisor, and I'm telling you that you should change your oil every 6 months, every 7,000 miles, whatever it is, most people aren't gonna say no if you give them a good reason.
I know. It's crazy. And listen, I was at a dealership not too long ago, very prominent, very large dealer group out of the Midwest training. This exact same thing happened 2 times in the week that I was training, and the advisor had the audacity to argue with me. They said, "Well, Steve, I like to show people things, right? I like to take the customer back and show them. And if they don't want it, you know." And I said, "Okay, but did you create a need?" That's our whole thing. Did you create a need? Did the customer know they needed it? Did you let them know there would be consequences for not doing it? He goes, "Well, I showed them." He goes, "I took them to the car, swear to God, and I showed them that their brakes were worn out." That's what he told me. And he kept pointing to the brakes. He said, "Their brakes are worn out." And the customer drove away. Well, now this customer in a Kia drove down the street, got a mile or two from the dealership, crashed a car into a curb, $1,800, less than 5-10 minutes from leaving the dealership for not doing that. And of course, the dealer paid for the brakes, right? The dealer paid for the brakes, the brake repair, and the repairs to the customer's vehicle. And so a similar story happened at another one of their same stores in the same week because they were using poor words. I recommend, no, no, I really recommend you get this done. I strongly, and so they're going down this path. These advisors were arguing with me that they did a good job, yet 2 cars crashed and to the tune of 5 grand to the dealer in 1 week, 2 separate stores within the auto group. And they were hanging their hat on, they're doing it right. And I said, well, if you did it right, your dealer would not have a $5,000 repair, but they refused to talk about the consequence. They've refused to absolutely do it. And I go, that is the job, bro. If you don't like that, then you're in the wrong role. That's all I'm telling you. You're in the wrong role if you can't say that to your customer. And it doesn't make people happy and it doesn't make me their best friend, but that's the job.
It is, and I think that's the difference between a professional advisor and just somebody that's stopping in and, not making a career out of it, whatever they're there for. You have a lot of advisors out there that are great. They enjoy what they do. They love it. It's a career for them. We gotta have a couple of guys on pretty soon about what makes a career advisor and why they do what they do. But yeah, I mean, I tell the story of, you know, COVID comes, post-COVID, can't buy a new car, right? There's no supply out there. Customer comes in, they purchased their lease, a Pathfinder, and they had bought it was a different store, different state that they had actually bought it. But they broke down near us and it got towed into us and their engine was seized, right? So the Nissan wanted copies of the oil change because there was nothing showing in the national history because Nissan has a natural history. You can see all the work that was done. There was no oil change. And Ellie's like, "Nobody ever told me to do an oil change." It was actually bought at that same dealership that Mike and I worked at that point. But they had bought the lease, 42,000 miles, engine blows up, her extended warranty is not gonna cover it, and you think to yourself, "Well, it's a lease, I don't have to take care of it. It's a lease, I can ignore it." It doesn't work that way. Todd said today, or today when we were talking about, leases in the same subject, he's like, "Listen, I bought my last lease out." He goes, "My wife didn't wanna switch cars. She didn't want a new car." He goes, "I'm glad I took care of it
Yeah.
because I change the oil every 6 months on it." He goes, "I'm glad I did." He goes, "Can you imagine that? I ride around in the car for 3 years, ignore it for 3 years, and then buy it?" He goes, "That would be stupid." And that's what people are doing. So, him and I talked about competitive pricing. We talked about the A and B services with Mercedes. I don't think, when somebody calls, you should be telling them it's $950 for a B
Right.
service. Like, I think that's stupid.
Right.
Our services are 250, $300, whatever the case may be. That's an oil change, a tire rotation, a multi-point, set the tire pressures, top off of the fluids, whatever you want to call it, right? Whatever it is. And I said to Todd, I said, if the gal does 3 extra oil changes in the 3 years, would
Yeah.
you give him 1,000 more for his trade? And then I went into my rant and our rant about, how the conspiracy theory is. And again, well, I asked him, I said, when's the last time you heard the Mercedes rep beating you up about selling their VSCs? You never had that conversation because they don't want to have that. They'll sell prepaid maintenance all day long, but they won't have that conversation. I could, they know it's on the dealer's books. That's what they know. I'm convinced
You
they discovered the conspiracy.
you know this more than anybody else looking at the books, and I know you're heavily involved in the reinsurance plan and, overseeing your dealer's money. But I was on a call today with a dealer group, and we were looking at the dollars that was coming back into the service department through reinsurance, in literally 90 days, right? And this auto group was over $500,000 or close to $500,000 in 90 days, right? And so that's the money that these insurance policies are paying out, right? So it's tons and tons of dollars. And this is just a very small window. And I'm scratching my head going, wow, what's going to happen, over the course of a year, and how much money is going to be now, it's going to get shifted out of reinsurance. It's going to go into the service department pocket, but then we're going to lose X, Y, and Z, right? We're going to lose all of the gross and the net, right? All the expenses. So, but we're losing a ton of money. And I think that's a big part of your argument. But then the manufacturers are going, right, it didn't cost us anything. That's $1 million of the dealer's money, right? Good kudos to the dealer for taking care of that, right?
Yeah, I think it's a good revenge tactic on the manufacturer's part, to be honest with you, because for years we didn't sell their policies, right? So,
Yeah.
somebody figured it out. Somebody went, you know what? Let them keep their insurance. Let's see what happens at 80,000 miles. And again, we had that conversation with the Infinity customer, and 80,000 miles is time and change ups, right?
Yeah.
He followed the book. Now, I don't think he followed the right recommendation, and I told him that, and we wound up taking him out of the car and trading him out of it. I felt bad for the guy, but the people don't understand that oil thickens up, it gets sludgy in there, and it clogs up that tensioner, and all of a sudden the timing chain tensioner can't work. That chain starts flopping around, it jumps, and it causes all kinds of havoc. So it's mind boggling to me, and I love it that Mike brings that up because it happens more than just once. That's happening every day in somebody's service department. It's just one
Well,
of those.
there's no question about that. I bought my first Wrangler. I leased it. It was a 2016 base model, crank windows. I mean, you name it, right? I had a Jeep Wave program, but in my head, I was like, I've always wanted a Wrangler. I'm going to keep this, right? So I did way above, right? Way above best care. I bought every fluid service. I bought everything you could do. I would balance my tires at every rotation and and I would do the engine oil additive and the this and the that, And all you had to do at the time was just say, hey, this is on the schedule. This is whatever for your car. And I'm going to say yes, yes, yes. Well, if they didn't ask me for something, I would ask for it, like you would do on your, on your Hemi Charger or whatever. And I would ask for it. I want to get it done. And they'd be like, Steve, why are you spending money on your truck? It's a lease. And like they were trying to talk me out of spending money on my car. And it's like, no, I want to, I'm here to give you money. And our advisors are turning money away. And, I looked this up today because I had to do a presentation to this auto group, and I was looking up training, I was looking up metrics, I was looking up measurements. And the difference between measuring and coaching every day versus coaching beyond a day or a week is astronomical. It's astronomical, the difference of the money. If you coach every day, you measure every day and coach every day, it's light years. I'm talking hundreds of thousands of dollars for a dealership versus, if I measure and monitor and coach every day versus once a week, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I can't get a manager to tell me a good reason why they won't do it because there isn't one.
There isn't a good reason, right? It's busy work, whatever the case may be. Everybody has these ideas of what their day is like. But that's what I think. I was talking to one of the techs today in the shop, and that's why I was talking about the video. I said, in addition to the video, showing the customer underneath the car what it needs, you got to tell them why. People don't know. Like you said earlier, they don't know that, okay, my brakes are low. What does that mean? right? If your doctor says, listen, your arteries are 60% clogged. Okay, I got 40% to go. I'm good, right? Doesn't mean right? And it's in context. You have to tell these people, and that's where I think either the advisors don't know this stuff, they've never been students of the game, they're lazy. Todd's point was they're just waiting for the next big fat recall to come through the door, right? And you wind up paying these advisors good money. I've never been one to pay them just on customer pay. I pay them, listen, I don't want them to treat the warranty customer like a redhead stepchild. I don't want them to treat the WEO customer like a redhead stepchild, right? Somebody comes in. So treat all the customers. You see a car, ching ching, there's money in that car somewhere along the way, right? But they're turning that theory against me where, you almost have to tie it into closing ratios, that's tangible to what they're selling to make them get the bonuses and not just some arbitrational number like CSI because they're definitely not selling. This store is at 35% closing rate, right? I mean, 35%. And I showed them compared to another store, almost the same dollars recommended in the same period of time. It was a very short period of time, but it recommended. And, it was like, it was almost $100,000 more in completed sales. This is 15 days. This is through the 16th of the month. So this is not a big thing. It's $100,000 more in sales that one of my other stores got just by increasing the closing ratio, right? And what are they doing? They're TOing. There's somebody talking to a customer. If it's brakes, tires, batteries, they're not letting the customer go without a second or third shot to try to sell it to them. But it's a lot for one guy as a manager to be doing that. You have to have a team of people. I mean, you can spend your whole day trying to TO stuff if you have that bad of advisors. So it just keeps coming up. The topic keeps coming up. Hopefully you know, I'm trying to explain to a Mercedes guy that we should have menus, we should have this stuff. And they're sitting there looking at me like, really? Like I've been saying this for 10 years. Like, haven't you been listening? But now that it's a little bit slow, all right. And, there's a lot less cars. Again, I say there's 1 year less cars on the road over the last 6 years with the decrease in sales. Now all of a sudden people are feeling it, right? Now these cars aren't 4 years old coming in the door. 1 year's worth of, just say for every dealer, it's 1 year's worth of sales is missing the last 5 years. That's a big number, man.
It is. It's crazy. And, I mean, you could go all kinds of different ways down the path with this, whether it's, what Mike had said earlier, that the customer didn't buy it. They probably didn't believe it and they felt like they were getting ripped off, right? You could say, it's the manufacturer's fault. We talked before about the technicians. And, there was a statistic that I heard today that, over the next year, 70,000 techs are going to retire and only 35,000 are going to graduate. So where are we going to get people? And what would possess me to stay with you? Times are tough right now. Like if there's a good dealer out there, they're figuring out how to retain their people and so on. And if you're at a store and you don't care about me, right? And you don't care about my needs and you don't care if I make a paycheck and you want to talk to me once a week, go, here's your paycheck, bro. And I go, I don't have 40 hours. I got 30. I can't feed my family. 5 more hours, right? If you don't care enough to talk to me about that, or even as an advisor to make sure that I'm selling enough, I'm gonna leave. And so there's a whole different avenue, that one comment could spawn for a dealership. It could go in so many different directions. But as a guy who studies human behavior, if we don't take care of our people and make sure they get a paycheck, then we're not going to have people to work on cars down the road, and so I think that message is we got to get to it, and I would even I hate my Wagoneer stories. I love them. I think they're absolutely hysterical, but we know that it's happening. We see it every single day. And I tried to tell a group of people today, there's some CDGR stores. I go, look, I'm going to tell you, this group that's here locally is a prominent group in the industry. Now they're not my client, but I don't train them, but they're a prominent group in the auto industry. So they're not just fooling around. They may have their own trainers or however they do business, but they're not getting it done. Their people are not getting it done for them. It's not happening.
Yeah, I think the thing that everybody misses is that the individual service advisor, technician, salesperson, doesn't matter what it is, F&I manager or whatever. One bad individual is all it takes is to get customers to go and not, You just have to have one person that's just not an enthusiast, doesn't believe in the process. I called the dentist today that screwed up one of my teeth. I called up a dentist, the dentist I've been using. I've probably spent, I don't know, over $30,000 there in the last few years to get some teeth fixed, right? I call. The first thing they asked me for is my birth date. I give it to them. They say, "Are you Mark?" I said, "No, I'm Dave." Hold on. So I guess two people in the office have the same birthday. No big deal, right? So then she said, "Did you schedule a teeth cleaning?" I said, "Yes, but I have a problem with one of my teeth." "I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you." I said, "Yes." Now my phone had 4 bars, right? So I'm driving. I'm thinking, okay, it's me because I'm driving. I said, "Yes." I said, "But I have a problem with one of my tooth." "I can't hear anything." Click, hung up. And of course, I sit there and say, "Just for giggles, I want to see if they'll call me back." They haven't called me back,
Right, right,
right?
right.
So most people in this office are always very nice and very pleasant, but I got that one person today that I guess just had better things to do with her life. She had my record up. She knows my cell phone, right? She could have called me back,
Right,
but
right.
she chose not to. So, that's all it takes is that one person. And you know what? I challenge anybody that's listening to the podcast, anybody that owns a car dealership, is a general manager, is a service manager. Heck, if you're listening to this podcast and you're not in the car business, but you own a business, there's somebody on your front line that should not be on your front line.
That's it, that's it.
Not it. They shouldn't be answering the phone. They shouldn't be talking to customers. I'm just telling you.
What cracked me up today, just 15 minutes ago, when you had texted me, and I'm headed to the grocery store, right? I got to go to the grocery store, and I'm waiting on a phone call for something. And I don't usually pick up phone numbers on my personal phone that I don't know. But a guy called me on my personal phone number, and with the crackly line, I go, "How can I help you, sir?" It was a local number. And he says, "I'm with ABC Roofing," or whatever roofing company I was with. He goes, "I'm going to be in your area, and I'm going to be inspecting roofs. Would you like a roof inspection?" And at first, it annoyed the crap out of me. I'm like, "Leave me the F alone," right? This call, right? But the way it sounded to me after I hung up the phone, I go, "Thanks, bro. I got a brand new house. I'm good." But I sort of chuckled inside, and I'm like, "Kudos to that guy, right? That guy is a hustler. He's out there trying to grow his business, and I don't know if he's the owner or maybe he's just a minion for somebody or an advisor or what he is, but he's out there cold calling, "Can I just stop by and look at your roof?" Right? I'm not gonna say good, bad if it's I'm just saying there's a guy out there that's cold calling because he needs business. He needs work. And so he's willing to listen to knuckleheads like me, and I'm like, "God, we need that guy in the business. Somebody that actually cares enough to want to sell something."
I get probably 10 calls, 10 text messages a month from different people that are in the area, right? And tree guys, landscaping people, whatever, always just ask me, "Hey, can we stop by and take a look at your place and give you an estimate?" I get them all the time. And you're right, I think the same thing. Kudos to them for being aggressive. I don't know how they get my phone number, but they certainly know where I live because I see those trucks in my neighborhood the same day or that week. So they're definitely here. So somehow they figured it out. But you're right. It's that scratching, clawing, wanting it, the competitiveness, whatever it is. And unfortunately, a lot of the advisors, a lot of the managers, we talked about that a little bit with Ed about going to the next level and being hungry. You should keep trying to get better and better. There's a lot of people out there that are very complacent in this business. And, unfortunately, we're forced into a lot of times paying more money than we want to pay. And we're doing it to the wrong people sometimes. It's coming back to bite us in the ass, I think, because we just don't have a lot of people out there that are just hungry like that guy or, the
Yeah.
chicken service or whatever it is. And again, there's too many people answering the phones like my dentist. So, I
Well,
should have,
that guy's Yeah,
should,
that guy's the guy that should get paid 100 grand or more
right.
and, be our closer, be our TO guy, right? And then everybody else could be a process guy and just walk around cars,
I
do
agree
that,
100%. I
you
agree
know?
100%. We talk about these stories like, that comment that Mike brought up there and I guess they just rather deal with the customer that doesn't come back, I guess, or just, goes away because that's where you get that loyalty and the retention part. I think that you're a Jeep enthusiast, right? But there's a point in your life where you may stop buying Jeeps because you get tired of the service at certain dealers, right? Like I think if I'm a Mercedes enthusiast or whatever, a Dodge enthusiast, whatever the case may be, and I do everything by the book, and that engine blows up at 60,000 miles, and I did everything by the book, I might not be an enthusiast anymore, right? If it
Sure.
happens to me more than once.
Right.
And, when I'm talking to a guy about, some JLR cars, some Land Rovers and stuff, and some other ones, oh, they've been jumping time for 15 years. I go, yeah, but you've been recommending maintenance once a year for 15 years. You know, now you got once every 2 years for maintenance. Like, did anybody ever learn the lesson? Like, to tell the customer, and it's almost like, like, what? Why would we tell the customer? Because their engines are blowing up at 80,000 miles, and maybe they're going to stop buying the brand. You know what I mean? Like, you're not doing anybody any favors.
Well,
So,
yeah, you're right. I'll let you wrap us up. I got to tell the story. I probably told this a long time ago, but I had a 40-foot Jayco Embark with a Cummins diesel engine that what cost $50,000. I take it into the RV dealership over here, and they're like, "Well, we can save you a little bit of money on your oil. You can do this, and you can save some money." And I go, "Bro, that engine costs 50,000. I don't know anything about diesels, but I know that engine costs 50K to it's a diesel pusher. It's gotta cost 50 grand. Please
see,
don't save me any money. Please give me the best protection because I'm going to be driving to Mount Everest someday or driving over the Rockies or driving somewhere. And I certainly do not want to have a problem with my diesel because Steve Shaw, was cheap, right? Oh, you cheaped out on the oil change. If you'd have just put the Robello in versus the other shit oil, you'd have been fine, Steve. And I'm like, bro, I bought a diesel pusher. I got the cash, make my car last a long time. And I think we've got to get into that mindset, especially right now. Especially
I
right now.
yeah, because I think it's more important for some of these people to be friends and to, like, I want Steve to like me, right? Instead of me telling Steve the truth. I mean, that's what it boils down to a lot of times. It's just people don't want to hear the truth, or they think that I shouldn't say that. I think most people want to hear the truth. I
Right.
just think there's a lot of people out there that are afraid to tell the truth because they're just insecure, or again, they want you to, I want Steve to like me. You know what I mean? Like, it's stupid. You keep running around circles. My story was, I tell the guy to change the spark plugs in my charger at 50,000 miles. And he's like, well, they're 100,000 mile plugs. I go, no, they're not. And I'm arguing with him, and I'm like, listen, have your tech pull a spark plug. If it's not good, I mean, if it's good, I'll pay him to put it back in. Right. But otherwise, call me up when you pull it out. Right. So he pulls it out. And of course, it needs spark plug. And he goes, well, why do you want to do them so early? I go, that car is 10 years old. Who's paying for the catalytic converter? Me. Right? It's $3,000. Like, I don't, that's because that's what's going to go bad if I'm not burning fuel and dump it into the exhaust and all the oil and everything else. My converter is going to go bad. And it's not covered under warranty anymore. So what? I never thought of that. Holy moly, man. Like, so, those stories, yeah, we could probably go on and would bore our audience with my rant. But, I think it's very important. I honestly believe that, when Cindy and I did the podcast the first time, I liked her title was, a million miles, right? We don't get these cars with a million miles on them anymore. But there's people out there with 300,000 miles on their car, and I guarantee you they're changing the oil more frequently, right?
Absolutely.
We don't have that cork board and that bulletin board in the hallway with the Polaroid showing people the 100,000 mile club, 200,000, 300,000. Because you know why? We've chased them all away from the dealership because we refuse to change the oil more than once a year. They went somewhere else that was willing to say yes and right now, and I'll do that oil change.
Well, I will tell you this, and I'll let you wrap us up. I said it last time. When I first started training, I wanted people to like me. As a newbie trainer, like I thought, oh my gosh, if the advisors like me, if I can help them, if they like me, then I'll get called back. And then one day I go, I don't really give a shit if you like me or not. Right. Once I figured it out, that is, I have a message. My job is to deliver the message to you. You're going to like me a lot better when your check is, 3, 4, 5 times bigger than it is right now. So like me or don't like me, it doesn't matter. I have a job, and my job is to help you, give you tools, right? My job is to do that. You can think I'm a no good SOB while I'm there, but come payday, if you do what I say, you'll make a big fat check, right? My business is 1,000 times better than it ever was when I wanted people to like me, right? So it's got nothing to do with like, right? And that the famous saying, people buy from people they like and trust. Bullshit. People buy from people that tell them the facts. And that's how it works, right? So that's my rant for the day. So you
Yeah,
probably ought to wrap it up before I piss
that's a
everybody off.
good marketing thing, right? To buy from people they like. Well, listen, I'm going to use a true story today from a general manager that doesn't know service and parts very well. And while we were discussing this maintenance and severe driving, and we're talking about intervals of 6 months, right? I challenged him, go out to chat, whatever AI you use. I said, go out there and ask it. And I challenge everybody to do this. Go out and ask it, what is the best maintenance schedule I can do on my vehicle if I want to keep it for 150,000 miles?
There you go.
He was shocked that it said change the oil every 6 months or 7,500 miles. On it, he picked a Mercedes G Wagon or something. I don't even know what it picked, right? And it mentions the severe driving schedule. It mentions the frequency of maintenance that should be accelerated because of the cold, the starts and the stops, condensation building up in the engine, all the stuff that I always rant about, right? It says it in there, Chat GPT, right? And he's shocked. He's like, I never knew this. How many you been in the business? How long? He goes, I never knew it. I never looked it up. Right. So I would challenge anybody, if they don't believe me, go out and look at it. And then it also had a caveat that it said, but if you're leasing a car, I'm not going to bother talking you into, changing it oil twice a year. Right. That's kind of chat GPT said. But, listen, I would challenge anybody if you're not from fixed ops and you don't know the stuff and you weren't a mechanic, and I understand that not everybody is, not everybody has mechanical aptitude. But I think if you're in this business and you're in a position where you're dealing with customers, you need to learn at least the fundamentals of mechanics and understand that the consequences for not doing what we said to do. So,
Awesome.
that would be my tip of the day for the GMs. Use your AI tools, man. They're out there.
Ding, 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 ding. Use your AI tools. I've got to have that bell ringing when we say AI. Dave,
Yeah.
thank you so much. Everybody, glad you guys stuck with it through both of our rants. I challenge you guys, go to ChatGPT, tell me what they say. And if anything we say is BS, let us know. If you do it, I'll
Hey.
read it on the air. All right. I'll chat with you later, Dave.
All right, man. Have a good one.